Okay, testing, testing. Okay, testing, testing. Okay, ad break starting in a minute. So give me a moment to go ahead and actually put up an announcement. There we go. Thank you for redeeming number one, silly. I decided I'm gonna change up my idea. I wanted to read The Picture of Dorian Gray, but I'm not going to. Did Bark work? Because I don't hear it. Okay, good. Oh, thanks for coming by, Twitchy. I'm just, oh, thanks, Twitch. You didn't need to subscribe again. So much. It means so much. Thank you. Like I was just saying, I'm gonna start this new book series. I was gonna read A Picture of Dorian Gray. The ad is starting, but you're subbed, so it doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, I decided I'm gonna read We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. It's kind of the forerunner of all dystopian fiction. And I'm gonna, once the ad's over, I'm gonna read a little bit about the author and a little bit about the book, and then get into it. Hopefully I can finish my announcement before that happens. 1 December reading series. Again, We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. I'm sending you anything? Oh, sorry. Okay, that can get posted, and then I'll also, I think I'll probably also go ahead and drop this in a self-promo channel or two. Let's see. La vaca, la vaca, la vaca. Where's the self-promo channel? Shit, I don't know. Fuck it. We're just gonna run with it. We're gonna run with it. And the ad is in progress again? Wait a minute, what the fuck? Okay, maybe the ad's just still going. Either way, let's go ahead and get Silly in first. Siribito.
Come on, stretch now. Come on, move it, Ron, move it.
Thanks for stretching me out. Oh, and to hydrate. Shit, I didn't even see that. Thank you. And I don't know if you're subscribed, Lucas, so you can't really hear me stretching or speaking at all, but thank you for joining me. Let's see. Got a minute left on the ad. How does everything sound? Is the music too loud? Is my voice too loud? Is it too quiet? Keep making these noises for everyone. I mean, well, yeah, it's kind of deep, isn't it, dearest? Okay, Luca can still hear me. Okay, sounds good. Awesome. Good. I've been having all kinds of trouble with this mic for forever, and I think it's because I keep moving it, and because I bounce it and abuse it, because it is a bad little microphone and needs to be whipped into shape. Okay, 20 seconds. Yeah, I had planned to read The Picture of Dorian Gray, and I started pre-reading a little bit, and I didn't like it. So I decided to go find something else, and I actually managed to find a book that I have yet to finish. It was I picked it up a few years back, never really got too far into it. But it's supposed to be kind of like the godfather of all dystopian fiction. And it's going to be a little familiar because it's written in a similar fashion to Dracula, where it's written as like records, like a diary. But this is, I think it's only of the one main character's perspective, so it'll be a little bit different. Anyway, the book is called We by Yevgeny Zamyatin, and I just want to give a little background on the author here. Yevgeny Zamyatin, born 1884, died 1937, was a Russian author best known for his science fiction and political satires. After his 1921 futuristic novel We was banned by the Soviets for its politics, it was surreptitiously published in the West. The original manuscript was also smuggled to Prague, creating a controversy in the USSR. Zamyatin, who also worked as an editor and who was responsible for translating writers such as Jack London, was then blacklisted from publishing in his native country. In 1931, Zamyatin was exiled to Paris and died in poverty. His most famous work, We, is credited as the inspiration behind George Orwell's 1984, Ayn Rand's Anthem, Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, and Kurt Vonnegut's Player Piano, the only one of which I haven't read is Kurt Vonnegut's last one, which I think is going to go ahead and go in the reading list. Excuse me. Anyway, that's about the author. About We. Out of the Russian Revolution comes the inspiration for all futuristic dystopian novels, including Brave New World and 1984. Yevgeny Zamyatin's We is set in an urban glass city called One State, regulated by spies and secret police. Citizens of the tyrannical One State wear identical clothing and are distinguished only by the number assigned to them at birth. The story follows a man called D503, who dangerously begins to veer from the norms of society after meeting I-330, a woman who defies the rules. D503 soon finds himself caught up in a secret plan to destroy One State and liberate the city. The failed utopia of We has been compared to the works of H.G. Wells, George Orwell, and Aldous Huxley. It was the first novel banned by the Soviets in 1921 and was finally published in its home country over a half-century later. It contains 40 records. Yes, from the description, it sounds like this is kind of like the precursor to Anthem. And I remember reading Anthem in high school, and that was kind of like the kickoff for my interest in dystopian fiction. And then after that, I read 1984, and then it was Brave New World, The Island. But anyway, here we go. Record 1, an announcement, the wisest of lines, a poem. This is merely a copy, word for word, of what was published this morning in the state newspaper. Quote, in another 120 days, the building of the integral will be complete. The great historic hour is near, when the first integral will rise into the limitless space of the universe. 1,000 years ago, our heroic ancestors subjected the whole earth to the power of the United State. A still more glorious task is before you. The integration of the indefinite equation of the cosmos by the use of the glass, electric, fire-breathing integral. Your mission is to subjugate the grateful yoke of reason, the unknown beings. Your mission is to subjugate to the grateful yoke of reason the unknown beings who live on other planets, and who are perhaps still in the primitive state of freedom. If they will not understand that we are bringing them a mathematically faultless happiness, our duty will be to force them to be happy. But before we take up arms, we shall try the power of words. In the name of the well-doer, the following is announced herewith to all numbers of the United States. Whoever feels capable must consider it his duty to write treatises, poems, manifestos, odes, and other compositions on the greatness and beauty of the United States. This will be the cargo which the integral will carry. Long live the United States, long live the numbers, long live the well-doer. I feel my cheeks burn as I write this. to integrate the colossal universal equation, to unbend the wild curve, to straighten it out to a tangent, to a straight line. For the United State is a straight line, a great, divine, precise, wise line, the wisest of lines. I, D503, the builder of the integral, I am the only one of the many mathematicians of the United States. Oh, yes. Oops. I, D503, the builder of the integral, I am only one of the many mathematicians of the United States. My pen, which is accustomed to figures, is unable to express the march and rhythm of consonants. Therefore, I shall try to record only the things I see, the things I think, or to be more exact, the things we think. Yes, we. That is exactly what I mean, and we, therefore, shall be the title of my records. But this will only be a derivative of our life, of our mathematical perfect life in the United States. If this be so, will not this derivative be a poem in itself, despite my limitations? It will, I believe it, I know it. My cheeks still burn as I write this. I feel something familiar to what a woman probably feels when for the first time she senses within herself the pulse of a tiny blind human being. It is I, and at the same time, it is not I. For many long months, it will be necessary to feed it with my life, with my blood, and then, with a pain at my heart, to tear it from myself and lay it at the feet of the United States. Yet I am ready, as everyone, or nearly every one of us is. I am ready. Record 2, Ballet, Square Harmony, X. Spring. From behind the green wall, from some unknown plains, the wind brings to us the yellow honeyed pollen of flowers. One's lips are dry from this sweet dust. Every moment one passes, one's tongue over them. Probably all women whom I met in the street, and certainly men also, have sweet lips today. This somewhat disturbs my logical thinking. But the sky is blue. Its limpidness is not marred by a single cloud. How primitive was the taste of the ancients, which, since their poets were always inspired by the senseless, formless, stupidly rushing accumulations of vapor. I am sure it will not be an error if I say we love only such a sky, a sterile, faultless sky. On such days, the whole universe seems to be molded of the same eternal glass, like the green wall, and like all of our buildings. On such days, one sees their wonderful equations hitherto unknown. One sees these equations in everything, even in the most ordinary, everyday things. Here is an example. This morning, I was on the dock where the integral was being built, and I saw the lathes, blindly, with abandon, the balls of the regulators rotating. The cranks were swinging from side to side with a glimmer. The working beam proudly swung its shoulder, and the mechanical chisels were dancing to the melody of unheard tarantellas. I suddenly perceived all the music, all the beauty of this colossal, this mechanical ballet, illumined by light blue rays of sunshine. Then the thought came, why beautiful? Why is the dance beautiful? Answer, because it is an unfree movement. Because the deep meaning of the dance is contained in its absolute ecstatic submission, in the ideal non-freedom. If it is true that our ancestors would abandon themselves in dancing at the most inspired moments of their lives, religious mysteries, military parades, then it means only one thing. The instinct of non-freedom has been characteristic of human nature from ancient times, and we in our life of today, we are only consciously. I was interrupted. The switchboard clicked. I raised my eyes. 090, of course. In half a minute she'll be here to take me for the walk. Dear O, she always seems to me like that name. She always seems to me to look like her name, O. She is approximately 10 centimeters shorter than the required maternal norm. Therefore, she appears round all over. The rose-colored O of her lips is open to meet every word of mine. She has a round, soft dimple on her wrist. Children have such dimples. As she came in, the logical flywheel was still buzzing in my head, and following its inertia, I began to tell her about my new formula, which embraced the machines and the dancers and all of us. "Wonderful, isn't it?" I asked. "Yes, wonderful. Spring," she replied with a rosy smile. "You see, spring. She talks of spring. Females." I became silent. We were down in the street. The avenue was crowded. On days when the weather is so beautiful, the afternoon personal hour is usually the hour of the supplementary walk. As always, the big musical tower was playing the March of the United States with all of its pipes. The numbers, hundreds, thousands of numbers in light blue unifs, probably a derivative of the ancient uniform, with golden badges on the chest. The state number of each one, male or female. The numbers were walking slowly, four abreast, exaltedly keeping step. We four, were but one of the innumerable waves of a powerful torrent. To my left, 90. If one of my long-haired ancestors were writing this 1,000 years ago, he would probably call her by that funny word, mine. To my right, two unknown numbers, a she number and a he number. Blue sky, tiny baby suns in each one of our badges. Our faces are unclouded by the insanity of thoughts. Rays. Do you picture it? Everything seems to be made of a kind of smiling, a ray-like matter, and the brass measures, trut-a-tum, stamping on the brassy steps that sparkle in the sun. With every step you raise higher and higher into the dizzy blue heights. Then, as this morning on the dock, again I saw, as if for the first time in my life, the impeccably straight streets, the glistening glass of the pavement. Oh, and I have the wrong picture. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and we're going to find a picture of the cover of We. Yevgeny Zamyatin. Images. This is a good one. We'll use this one. We. Now go to. Where's the cover? There's the cover properties. Browse. We. Oh my god, it's so tiny. We. Okay, we. Stamping on the brassy steps that sparkle in the sun, with every step you rise higher and higher into the dizzy blue heights. Then, as this morning on the dock, again I saw, as if for the first time in my life, the impeccably straight streets, the glistening glass of the pavement, the divine parallelopeds of the transparent dwellings, the square harmony of the grayish-blue rows of numbers. It seemed to me that not past generations, but I myself, had won a victory over the old god and the old life, that I myself had created all this. I felt like a tower. I was afraid to move my elbow, lest the walls, the cupola, and the machines would fall to pieces. Later. Then, without a warning, jump through centuries. Oh, sorry, that later was directed at Silly. I'll be stamping on her later. Then, without warning, a jump through centuries, I remembered, apparently through an association by contrast, a picture of the museum, a picture of an avenue of the 20th century, a thundering, many-colored confusion of men, wheels, animals, billboards, trees, colors, and birds. They say all this once actually existed. It seemed to me so incredible, so absurd, that I lost control of myself and laughed aloud. A laugh, as if an echo of mine. Hi, Bees, thanks for the lurk. It seemed to me so incredible, so absurd, that I lost control of myself and laughed aloud. A laugh, as if an echo of mine, reached my ear from the right. I turned. I saw white, very white, sharp teeth and an unfamiliar female face. "I beg your pardon," she said, but you looked about you like an inspired mythological god on the seventh day of creation. You looked as though you are sure that I, too, was created by you, by no one but you. It's very flattering. All this without a smile, even with a certain degree of respect. She may know that I am the builder of the integral. In her eyes, nevertheless, and on her brows, there was a strange, irritating X, and I was unable to grasp it, to find an arithmetical expression for it. Somehow I was confused. With a somewhat hazy mind, I tried logically to explain my laughter. It was absolutely clear that this contrast, this impassable abyss between the things of today and of years ago. But why impassable? What bright, sharp teeth! One might throw a bridge over that abyss. Please imagine a drum battalion, rows. All this existed before, and consequently... Oh yes, it is clear, I exclaimed. It was a remarkable intersection of thoughts. She said almost in the same words the things that I had written down before the walk. Do you understand? Even the thoughts. It was because nobody is one, but one of. We are all so much alike. Are you sure? I noticed her brows that rose to the temples in an acute angle, like the sharp corners of an X. Again, I was confused, casting a glance to the right, then to the left. To my right, she, slender, abrupt, resistantly flexible like a whip. I-330. I saw her number now. To my left, O, totally different, all made of circles with a childlike dimple on her wrist, and at the very end of our row, an unknown he number, double curved like the letter S. We were all so different from one another. The one to my right, I-330, apparently caught the confusion in my eye, for she said with a sigh, "Yes, alas." I don't deny that this exclamation was quite in place, but again there was something in her face or in her voice. With an abruptness unusual for me, I said, "Why, alas? Science is developing, and if not now, then within 50 or 100 years. Even the noses will. Yes, noses." This time I almost shouted, since there is still a reason, no matter what, for envy, since my nose is button-like and someone else's is... Well, your nose is rather classic, as they would have said in ancient days, although your hands... No, show me your hands. I hate to have anyone look at my hands. They're covered with long hair, a stupid atavism. I stretched out my hand and said indifferently as I could, ape-like. She glanced at my hand, then at my face. No, a very curious harmony. She weighed me with her eyes as though with scales. The little horns again appeared at the corners of her brows. He is registered in my name, exclaimed 090 with a rosy smile. I made a grimace. Strictly speaking, she was out of order. This dear how shall I say it? The speed of her tongue is not correctly calculated. The speed per second of her tongue should be slightly less than the speed per second of her thoughts, at any rate, not the reverse. At the end of the avenue, the big bell of the accumulating tower was At the end of the avenue, the big bell of the accumulating tower resounded 17. The personal hour was at an end. I-330 was leaving us with the S-like he number. He had such a respectable, and I noticed then, such a familiar face. I must have met him somewhere, but where I could not remember. Upon leaving me, I-330 said with that same X-like smile, "Drop in day after tomorrow at Auditorium 112. I shrugged my shoulders as if I'm assigned... I shrugged my shoulders. If I am assigned to the auditorium you just named, she, with a peculiar, incomprehensible certainty, you will be. The woman had a disagreeable effect upon me, like an irrational component of an equation which you cannot eliminate. I was glad to remain alone with dear O, at least for a short while. Hand in hand with her, I passed 4 lines of avenues. At the next corner, she went to the right, I to the left. O timidly raised her round blue crystalline eyes. I would like so much for you to come... I would like so much to come to you today and pull down the curtains, especially today. Right now. How funny she is. But what could I say to her? She was with me only yesterday, and she knows as well as I that our next sexual day is day after tomorrow. It is merely another case in which her thoughts are too far ahead. It sometimes happens that the spark comes too early to the motor. At parting, I kissed her twice. No, I shall be exact, 3 times, on her wonderful blue eyes, such clear, unclouded eyes. Oh, I thought that was, hi, bees. What does WZPPP mean? If you want to pop back from Lurk and explain that, that's fine. Record 3. A coat, a wall, the tables. I looked over all that I had wrote down yesterday, and I find that my descriptions are not sufficiently clear. That is, everything would undoubtedly be clear to one of us, but who knows to whom my integral will someday bring these records. Perhaps you, like our ancestors, have read the great book of civilization only up to the page of 900 years ago. Perhaps you don't know even such elementary things as the hour tables, personal hours, maternal norm, green wall, well-doer. It seems droll to me, and at the same time, it's very difficult to explain these things. It is as though, let us say, a writer from the 20th century should start to explain in his novel such words as coat, apartment, wife. Yet, if his novel had been translated for primitive races, how could he have avoided explaining what a coat meant? I'm sure that primitive man would look at a coat and think, what is this for? It is only a burden, an unnecessary burden. I'm sure that you will feel the same if I tell you that not one of us has ever stepped beyond the green wall since the 200 Years' War. But, dear readers, you must think at least a little. It helps. It is clear that the history of mankind, as far as our knowledge goes, is a history of the transition from nomadic forms to more sedentary ones. Does it not follow that the most sedentary form of life, ours, is at the same time the most perfect one? There was a time when people rushed from one end of the earth to another, but this was the prehistoric time when such things as nations, wars, commerce, different discoveries of different Americas still existed. Who has need of these things now? I admit that humanity acquired this habit of a sedentary form of life not without difficulty and not all at once. When the 200 Years' War had destroyed all the roads, which later were overgrown with grass, it was probably very difficult at first. It must have seemed uncomfortable to live in cities which were cut off from each other by green debris. But what of it? Man soon after he lost his tail probably did not learn at once how to chase away flies without its help. I am almost sure that at first he was even lonesome without his tail. But now, can you imagine yourself with a tail? Or can you imagine yourself walking in the street naked without clothes? It's possible you go without clothes still. Here, we have the same case. I cannot imagine a city which is not surrounded by a green wall. I cannot imagine a life which is not surrounded by the figures of our tables. Tables, now even. Purple figures look at me austerely yet kindly from the golden background of the wall. Involuntarily, I am reminded of the thing which was called by the ancients sainted image. I feel a desire to compose verses or prayers, which are the same. Oh, why am I not a poet, so as to be able to glorify the tables properly, the heart and pulse of the United State? All of us, and perhaps all of you, read in childhood, while in school, that greatest of all monuments of ancient literature, the official railroad guide. But if you compare this with the tables, you will see side by side graphite and diamonds, both of the same, carbon, but now eternal, transparent. How shining the diamond. Oh, sorry, that was wrong. But how eternal, transparent, how shining the diamond. Who does not lose his breath when he runs through the pages of the guide? The tables transformed each one of us, actually, into a 6-wheeled steel hero of a great poet. Into a 6-wheeled steel hero of a great poem. Every morning, with 6-wheeled precision, at the same hour, at the same minute, we wake up, millions of us at once. At the very same hour, millions like one, we begin our work, and millions like one, we finish it. united into a single body with a million hands. At the very same second, designated by the tables, we carry the spoons to our mouths. At the same second, we all go out to walk, go to the auditorium, to the halls for the tailor exercises, and then to bed. I shall be quite frank. Even we have not attained the absolute, exact solution of the problem of happiness. Twice a day, from 16 to 17 o'clock, and from 21 to 22, our powerful united organism dissolves into separate cells. These are the personal hours designated by the tables. During these hours, you would see the curtains discreetly drawn in the rooms of some. Others march slowly over the pavement to the main avenue, or sit at their desks as I sit now. But I firmly believe, let them call me an idealist and a dreamer, I believe that sooner or later we shall somehow find a place in the general formula even for these hours. Somehow, all of the 86,400 seconds will be incorporated into the table of hours. I have an opportunity to read and hear many improbable things about these times when human beings still lived in the state of freedom, that is, in an unorganized, primitive state. One thing has always seemed to me most improbable. How could a government, even a primitive government, permit people to live without anything like our tables, without compulsory walks, without precise regulation of the time to eat, for instance? They would get up and go to bed whenever they liked. Some historians even say that in those days the streets were lighted all night, and all night people went about the streets. That I cannot understand. True, their minds were rather limited in those days, yet they should have understood, should they not, that such a life was actually wholesale murder, although slow murder, day by day, day after day. The state, humanitarianism, forbade in those days the murder of one person, but it did not forbid the killing of millions slowly and by inches. To kill one person, that is, to reduce the individual span of human life by 50 years, was considered criminal, but to reduce the general sum of human life by 50 million years was not considered criminal. Isn't it droll? Today, the simple mathematical moral problem could easily be solved in half a minute's time by any 10-year-old number, yet they couldn't do it. All their Immanuel Kants together couldn't do it. It didn't enter the heads of all their Kants to build a system of scientific ethics, that is, ethics based on adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Further, it is not absurd that their state, they called it a state, left sexual life absolutely without control. On the contrary, whenever and as much as they wanted, absolutely unscientific, like beasts, and like beasts they blindly gave birth to children. It's not strange to understand gardening. Is it not strange to understand gardening, chicken farming, fishery? We have definite knowledge that they were familiar with all these things, and not to be able to reach the last step in this logical scale, namely, production of children? Not to be able to discover such things as maternal and paternal norms? It is so droll, so improbable that while I write this, I'm afraid lest you, my unknown future readers, should think I am merely a poor jester. I feel almost as if you may think I want simply to mock you and with a very serious face try to relate absolute nonsense to you. But first, I am incapable of jesting, for in every joke a lie has its hidden function. And second, the science of the United States contends that the life of the ancients was exactly what I am describing, and the science of the United States does not make mistakes. Yet, how could they have state logic, since they lived in a condition of freedom like beasts, like apes, like herds? What could one expect of them, since even in our days one hears from time to time, coming from the bottom, the primitive depths, the echo of the apes? Fortunately, it happens only from time to time, very seldom. Happily, it is only a case of small parts breaking. These may easily be repaired without stopping the eternal great march of the whole machine, and in order to eliminate a broken peg, we have the skillful heavy hand of the well-doer, we have the experienced eyes of the guardians. By the way, I just thought of that number whom I met yesterday, the double-curved one, the letter S. I think I have seen him several times coming out of the Bureau of Guardians. Now I understand why I felt such an instinctive respect for him, and a kind of awkwardness when I saw that strange I-330 at his side. I must confess that they ring the bell. Time to sleep. It is 22:30. Till tomorrow, then. I'm having a little sippy of some liquids here. How's everyone's morning? Record 4. The Wild Man with a Barometer. Epilepsy. If. Until today, everything in life seemed to me clear. That is why I think I always had a sort of partiality towards the word clear. But today, I don't understand. First, I really was assigned to Auditorium 112, as she said, although the probability was 500 to 10 million, or 1 to 20,000. 500 is the number of auditoriums, and there are 10 million numbers. And second, let me relate things in proper order. The auditorium, an enormous half-globe of glass with the sun piercing through. The circular rows of noble, globe-like, closely shaven heads. With joy in my heart, I looked around. I believe I was looking in the hope of seeing the rose-colored scythe, the dear lips of O somewhere among the blue waves of the Unifs. Then I saw extraordinarily white, sharp teeth, like the... No. Tonight, 21 o'clock, O was to come to me. Therefore, my desire to see her was quite natural. The bell. We stood up, sang the hymn of the United States, and our clever funnel lecturer appeared on the platform with a sparkling golden loudspeaker. Respected numbers, not so long ago our archaeologists dug up a book written in the 20th century. In this book, the ironical author tells about a wild man and a barometer. The wild man noticed that every time the barometer's hand stopped on the word rain, it actually rained. And as the wild man craved rain, he let out as much mercury as was necessary to put it at the level of the word rain. On the screen, a wild man with feathers letting out the mercury. Laughter. You are laughing at him, but don't you think the European of that age deserves more to be laughed at? He, like the wild man, wanted rain with a little r, an algebraic rain. But he remained standing before the barometer like a wet hen. The wild man at least had more courage and energy and logic, although primitive logic. The wild man showed the ability to establish a connection between cause and effect. By letting out the mercury, he made the first step on the path which... Here, I repeat, I am not concealing anything, I am setting down everything. I suddenly became impermeable to the quickening currents coming from the loudspeaker. I suddenly felt I had come here in vain. Why in vain? How could I not have come here, since I was assigned to come here? Everything seemed to me empty like a shell. I succeeded with difficulty in tuning my attention in again when the funnel lecturer came to the main theme of the evening, to our music as a mathematical composition. Mathematics is the cause, music is the effort. Good morning, Raven. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us. I'm just beginning my new series on We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. Thanks for joining. I hope you can like it. It's kind of the grandfather of dystopian fiction. It was written in 1921. Anyway, let's back to it. Where was I? The funnel lecturer began the description of the recently invented musicometer. By merely rotating this handle, anyone is enabled to produce about 3 sonatas per hour. What difficulties our predecessors had in making music? They were able to compose only by bringing themselves to attacks of inspiration, an extinct form of epilepsy. Here you have an amusing illustration of their achievements. The music of Scriabin, 20th century. This black box. A curtain parted on the platform, and we saw an ancient instrument. This box we call the Royal Grand. They attach to this idea of regality, which also goes to prove how their music... And I don't remember anything further. Very possibly because, I'll tell you frankly, because she, I-330, came to the royal box. Probably I was simply startled by her unexpected appearance on the platform. She was dressed in a fantastic dress of the ancient time, a black dress closely fitting the body, sharply delimiting the white of her shoulders and breasts, and that warm shadow waving with her breath between, and the dazzling, almost angry teeth, a smile, a bite directed downward. She took her seat. She began to play something wild, convulsive, loud like all their life then, not a shadow of rational mechanism. Of course, all those around me were right. They were laughing. Only a few. But why is it that I, too, Yes, epilepsy, a mental disease, a pain, a slow, sweet pain. Bite, and it goes deeper and becomes sharper. And then, slowly, sunshine. Not our sunshine. Not crystalline, bluish and soft, coming through the glass bricks. No, a wild sunshine, rushing and burning, tearing everything into small bits. The number at my left glanced at me and chuckled. I don't know why, but I remember exactly how a microscopic saliva bubble appeared on his lips and burst. That bubble brought me back to myself. I was again I. Like all the other numbers, I heard now only the senseless, disorderly crackling of the chords. I laughed. I felt so light and simple. The gifted phonolecturer represented to us only too well that wild epoch, and that was all. With what a joy I listened afterwards to our contemporary music. It was demonstrated to us at the end of the lecture for the sake of contrast. Crystalline, chromatic scales converging and diverging into endless series and synthetic harmony of the formulae of Taylor and Maclaurin, wholesome, square, and massive like the trousers of Pythagoras. Sad melodies dying away in waving movements, the beautiful texture of the spectrum of planets dissected by Fraunhofer lines. What magnificent, what perfect regularity! How pitiful the willful music of the ancients, not limited except by the scope of their wild imaginations. As usual, in good order, four abreast, all of us left the auditorium. The familiar double-curved figure passed swiftly by. I respectfully bowed. Dear O was to come in an hour. I felt agitated, agreeably and usefully. Home at last, I rushed to the house office, handed over to the controller on duty my pink ticket, and received a certificate permitting the use of the curtains. This right exists in our state only for the sexual days. Normally we live surrounded by transparent walls which seem to be knitted of sparkling air. We live beneath the eyes of everyone, always bathed in light. We have nothing to conceal from one another. Besides, this mode of living makes the difficult and exalted task of the guardians much easier. Without it, many bad things might happen. It is possible that the strange, opaque dwellings of the ancients were responsible for their pitiful, sellish psychology. My home is my fortress. How did they manage to think such things? At 22 o'clock, I lowered the curtain, and at the same second, O came in smiling, slightly out of breath. She extended to me her rosy lips and her pink ticket. I tore off the stub, but I could not tear myself away from the rosy lips up to the last moment. 22:15. Then I showed her my diary and I talked. I think I talked very well on the beauty of a square, a cube, a straight line. At first she listened so charmingly. She was so rosy. Then suddenly a tear appeared in her blue eyes, then another, and a third fell straight onto the open page. Page 7. The ink blurred. Well, I shall have to copy it again. My dear O, if only you... What if? If what? Again the old lament about a child, or perhaps something new regarding the other one. Although it seems as though But that would be too absurd. Record 5. Voice 10. Thank you, Raven. I hope you're enjoying the book. I've only just begun. We're 5 chapters in. They're rather short. If you missed anything, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in. I'll take a short respite to explain to you. Record 5. Square, the rulers of the world, an agreeable and useful function. Again with you, my unknown reader. I talk to you as though you were, let us say, my old comrade R13, the poet with the lips of a Negro. Well, everyone knows him. Yet you are somewhere on the moon or on Venus or on Mars. Who knows you, where and who you are? Imagine a square, a living, beautiful square. Imagine that the square is obliged to tell you about itself, about its life. You realize that the square would hardly think it necessary to mention the fact that its four angles are equal. It knows this all too well. This is such an extraordinarily obvious thing. I am in exactly the same square position. Take the pink checks, for instance, and all that goes with them. For me, they're as natural as the equality of the four angles of the square, but for you, they are perhaps more mysterious and hard to understand than Newton's binomial theorem. Let me explain. An ancient sage once said a clever thing, accidentally, beyond doubt. He said, "Love and hunger rule the world." Consequently, to dominate the world, man had to win a victory over hunger after paying a very high price. I refer to the great 200 Years' War, the war between the city and the land. Probably on account of religious prejudices, the primitive peasants stubbornly held on to their bread. In the 35th year after the foundation of the United States, our contemporary petroleum food was invented. True, only about 2/10 of the population of the globe did not die out, but how beautifully shining the face of the earth became when it was cleared of its impurities. Accordingly, the 0.2 which survived have enjoyed the greatest happiness in the bosom of the United States. But it is not clear that supreme bliss and envy are the only numerator and denominator. Respectively, of the same fraction, happiness. What sense would the innumerable sacrifices of the 200 Years' War have for us if a reason were left in our life for jealousy? Yet such a reason persisted because there remained button-like noses and classical noses. Cf. Our conversation during the promenade. For there were some whose love was sought by everyone, and others whose love was sought by no one. Naturally, having conquered hunger, that is, algebraically speaking, having achieved the total of bodily welfare, the United States directed its attack against the second ruler of the world, against love. At last, this element also was conquered, that is, organized and put into a mathematical formula. It is already 300 years since our great excuse me. Welcome in, Apollo. Thank you for claiming King of the Hill. At last, this element also was conquered, that is, organized and put into a mathematical formula. It is already 300 years since our great historic Lex Sexualis was promulgated. A number may obtain a license to use any other number as a sexual product. The rest is only a matter of technique. You are carefully examined in the laboratory of the sexual department, where they find the content of the sexual hormones in your body, and they accordingly make out for you a table of sexual days. Then you file an application to enjoy the services of number so-and-so or numbers so-and-so. You get for that purpose a checkbook, pink. That is all. It is clear that under such circumstances there is no reason for envy or jealousy. The denominator of the fraction of happiness is reduced to 0, and the whole fraction is thus converted into a magnificent infiniteness. The thing which was for the ancients a source of innumerable stupid tragedies has been converted in our time into a harmonious, agreeable, and useful function of the organism, a function like sleep, physical labor, the taking of food, digestion, etc., etc. Hence you see how the great power of logic purifies everything it happens to touch. Oh, if only you unknown readers can conceive this divine power, if you will only learn to follow it to the end. It is very strange. While I was writing today of the loftiest summit of human history, all the while I breathed the purest mountain air of thought, but within me it was and remains cloudy, cobwebby, and there is a kind of cross-like four-pawed X. Or perhaps it is my paws, and I feel like that only because they are always before my eyes, my hairy paws. I don't like to talk about them, I dislike them. They're a trace of a primitive epoch. Is it possible that there is in me... I wanted to strike out all this because it trespasses on the limits of my synopsis, but then I decided no, I shall not. Let this diary give the curve of the most imperceptible vibrations of my brain, like a precise seismograph, for at times such vibrations serve as forewarnings. Good morning, Apollo. Certainly this is absurd. This certainly should be stricken out. We have conquered all the elements. Catastrophes are not possible anymore. Now everything is clear to me. The peculiar feelings inside are as a result of that very same square situation of which I spoke in the beginning. There is no X in me. There can be none. I am simply afraid lest some X will be left in you, my unknown readers. I believe you will understand that it is harder for me to write than it ever was for any author throughout human history. Some of them wrote for contemporaries, some for future generations, but none of them ever wrote for their ancestors, or for beings like their primitive, distant ancestors. Record 6. An accident. The cursed. It's clear. 24 hours. I must repeat, I have made it my duty to write concealing nothing. Therefore, I must point out now that, sad as it may be, the process of the hardening and crystallization of life has evidently not been completed even here in our state. A few steps more, and we will be within reach of our ideal. The ideal, it's clear, to be found where nothing happens. But here, I will give you an example. In the state paper, I read that in 2 days the holiday of justice will be celebrated on the plaza of the Cube. This means that again, some number has impeded the smooth running of the great state machine. Again, something that was not foreseen or forecalculated happened. Besides, something happened to me. True, it occurred during the personal hour, that is, during the time specifically assigned to unforeseen circumstances, yet, at about 16, to be exact 10 minutes to 16, I was at home. Suddenly, the telephone. D503, a woman's voice. Yes? Are you free? Yes. It is I330. I shall run over to you immediately. We shall go together to the ancient house. Agreed? I330. This I irritates me, repels me. She almost frightens me, but just because of that, I answered, yes. In 5 minutes we were in an arrow. Blue sky of May. The bright sun in its own golden arrow buzzed behind us. The bright sun in its own golden arrow buzzed behind us without catching up and without lagging behind. Ahead of us, a white cataract of a cloud. Yes, a white cataract of a cloud, nonsensically fluffy like the cheeks of an ancient Cupid. That cloud was disturbing. The front window was open. It was windy, lips were dry. Against one's will, one passed the tongue constantly over them and thought about lips. Against one's will, one passed the tongue constantly over them and thought about lips. Already we saw in the distance the hazy green spots on the other side of the wall. Then a slight, involuntary sinking of the heart, down, 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 as if from a steep mountain, and we were at the ancient house. That strange, delicate, blind establishment is covered all around with a glass shell, otherwise it would undoubtedly have fallen to pieces long ago. At the glass door we found an old woman, all wrinkles, especially her mouth, which was all made up of folds and pleats. Her lips had disappeared, having folded inward. Her mouth seemed grown together. It seemed incredible that she should be able to talk, and yet she did. "Well, dear, come again to see my little house." Her wrinkles shone, that is, her wrinkles diverged like rays, which created the impression of shining. "Yes, grandmother," answered I-330. The wrinkles continued to shine. And the sun, eh? Do you see it, you rogue, you? I know it's all right. Go all by yourselves. I shall remain here in the sunshine. Apparently my companion was a frequent guest here. Something disturbed me. Probably that unpleasant optical impression. The cloud on the smooth surface of the sky. The cloud on the smooth blue surface of the sky. While we were ascending the wide, dark stairs, I-330 said, I love her, that old woman. Why? I don't know. Perhaps for her mouth, or perhaps for nothing. Just so. I shrugged my shoulders. She continued walking upstairs with a faint smile, or perhaps without a smile at all. I felt very guilty. It is clear that there must be love just so, but love because of, for all elements of nature should be. It's clear, I began, but I stopped at that word and cast a furtive look at I-330. Did she notice it or not? She looked somewhere, down. Her eyes were closed like curtains. It struck me suddenly, evening about 22. You walk on the avenue, and among the brightly lighted, transparent cubic cells are dark spaces, lowered curtains, and there behind the curtains, what has she behind her curtains? Why did she phone me today? Why did she bring me here, and all this? And there's an ad. I'm going to take a short break. Oh, wait, no, the ad's in 5 minutes. Okay, ad's in 5 minutes. We're going to read for 5 more minutes, then take a short little break. Why did she bring me here, and all this? She opened a heavy, squeaking, opaque door, and we found ourselves in a somber, disorderly space. They called it an apartment, the same strange royal music instrument and a wild, unorganized, crazy loudness of colors and forms, like their ancient music. A white plane above, dark blue walls, red, green, orange bindings of ancient books, yellow bronze candelabra, a statue of Buddha, furniture with lines distorted by epilepsy, impossible to reduce to any clear equation. I could hardly bear that chaos, but my companion apparently possessed a stronger constitution. This is my most beloved, she suddenly caught herself. Again, a smile, white and white sharp teeth. To be more exact, the most nonsensical of all apartments. Or to be most exact, of all the states. Thousands of microscopic states, fighting eternal wars, pitiless like. Oh, yes, it's clear, said I-330 with apparent sincerity. We passed through a room where we found a few small children's beds. Children in those days were also private property. Even then, more rooms, glimmering mirrors, somber closets, unbearably loud colored divans, an enormous fireplace, a large mahogany bed. Our contemporary, beautiful, transparent, eternal glass was represented here only by pitiful, delicate, tiny squares of windows. And to think, here there was love just so. They burned and tortured themselves. Again, the curtain of the eyes was lowered. What a stupid, uneconomical spending of human energy, am I not right? She spoke as though reading my thoughts, but in her smile there remained always that irritating X. There behind the curtains, something was going on. I don't know what, but something that made me lose my patience. I wanted to quarrel with her, to scream at her, exactly, to scream, but I had to agree. It was impossible not to agree. We stopped in front of a mirror. That moment, I saw only her eyes. An idea came to me. Human beings are built as nonsensically as these stupid apartments. Human heads are opaque, and there are only two very small windows that lead inside the eyes. She seemed to have guessed my thoughts. She turned around. Well, here they are. My eyes. Well? This suddenly, then silence. There in front of me were two gloomy dark windows, and behind them, inside, such a strange hidden life. I saw there only fire, burning like a peculiar fireplace, and unknown figures resembling. All this was certainly very natural. I saw in her eyes the reflection of my own face. My feelings were unnatural and not like me. Evidently, the depressing influence of the surroundings was beginning to tell on me. I definitely felt fear. I felt as if I were trapped in a strange cage. I felt that I was caught in the wild hurricane of ancient life. "Do you know," said I-330, "step for a moment into the next room." Her voice came from there, from inside, from behind the dark window eyes where the fireplace was blazing. I went in, sat down. From a shelf on the wall, there looked straight into my face, somewhat smiling, the snub-nosed, asymmetrical physiognomy. Just a moment. From a shelf on the wall, there looked straight into my face, somewhat smiling, the snub-nosed, asymmetrical physiognomy of one of the ancient poets. I think it was Pushkin. Why do I sit here enduring this smile with such resignation? And what is this all about? Why am I here? And why all these strange sensations, this irritating, repellent female, this strange game? The door of the closet slammed. There was the rustle of silk. I felt it difficult to restrain myself from getting up, and I don't remember exactly. Probably I wanted to tell her a number of disagreeable things, but she had already appeared. She was dressed in a short, bright yellowish dress, black hat, black stockings. The dress was of light silk. Okay, I'm going to take a quick little break. Okay, I will be back in a couple of minutes.
I'm so in shape, I'm a rock. It's all about egg white.
Okay, yeah, I can do the squats before we get back from the ad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Well, since the ad's still going, I'm just going to yap for a minute. But, yeah, I've been meaning to pick this book back up and read it for a while, and I'm kind of glad I did right now, considering I just finished Dracula, which is kind of written in the same style. I do like these books. I don't really know what it's called, but they're written as like collections of periodicals and journal entries and things. It's like a retrospective. I enjoy reading it. It's easier to read that than like a narrative story for me. But anyway, I'm enjoying this book so far. It's right up my alley with the weirdly horny. Yeah, you like that, Apollo? I'm glad I could be the provider of your weirdly horny literature. Yeah, rock weirdly horny. Couldn't be me, never. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I guess yeah, I'll go ahead and give a little shout out to the number one mod, NA. I'm gonna not make him work for me, though. TwitchImp01. Go ahead and shout him out. He's a real OG. And Luca. Always good to have Luca around. So, toaster. Lots of number ones in chat today. Good day to be reading about numbers, I suppose. Let's see who else came in. Raven came in. So, Raven. And then also, my dear friend, Apollo. Always a good bean to have around. Sorry. ST, learn to spell rock. Alright. And the ad is over. Welcome back. Thank you all for joining me. It's always good to have people listening. And it's always good to be able to share some classic fiction that I enjoy with people. Even though this is, I don't know, this is like horror for me. I don't really like, slasher horror. I like dystopian fiction because it's horrifying to me, but it's also so very, very intriguing. Anyway, back to it. She was dressed in a short, brightish yellow dress, black hat, black stockings. The dress was of light silk. I'm not muted, okay. I saw clearly very long black stockings above the knee, an uncovered neck, and the shadow between. It's clear that you want to seem original, but is it possible that you... It is clear, interrupted I-330, that to be original means to stand out among others. Consequently, to be original means to violate the law of equality. What was called in the language of the ancients to be common is with us only the fulfilling of one's duty. For... Jeff picked up a cyberpunk dystopia book. I'll check the title. Stuck in bed. Oh, I'm sorry, Apollo. Yeah, I do. I kind of want to read Neuromancer, but I kind of want to read more of Neuromancer on my own before I try to read it on here, because it's also paced very strangely. It's definitely written more of as a narrative, but it's still mostly within the head of the main character, which, I don't know, kind of is hard to... It's kind of hard to read, like, internal monologue, and portray it as such, but anyway. Yeah, let me know what that book is once you find it, Apollo. Yes, exactly. I interrupted impatiently, and there is no use, no use. She came near the bust of the snub-nosed poet, lowered the curtain on the wildfire of her eyes, and said, this time I think she was really in earnest, or perhaps she merely wanted to soften my impatience with her, but she said a very reasonable thing. Don't you think it surprising that once people could stand types like us, could stand types like this? Not only stand them, but worship them? What a slavish spirit, don't you think so? It's clear, that is, I wanted. Damn that cursed, it's clear. Oh yes, I understand, but in fact, these poets were stronger rulers than the crowned ones. Why were they not isolated and exterminated in our state? Oh yes, in our state, I began, but suddenly she laughed. I saw the laughter in her eyes. I saw the resounding sharp curve of that laughter, flexible, tense like a whip. I remember my whole body shivered. I thought of grasping her, and I don't know what. I had to do something. It mattered little what. Automatically, I looked at my golden badge, glanced at my number, 10 minutes to 17. Don't you think it's time to go? I said in as polite a tone as possible. And if I should ask you to stay here with me? What? Do you realize what you're saying? In 10 minutes I must be in the auditorium. And all numbers must take the prescribed courses in art and science, said I-330 with my voice. Then she lifted the curtain, opened her eyes. Through the dark windows the fire was blazing. I have a physician in the medical bureau. He is registered to me. If I ask him, he will give you a certificate declaring that you are ill, all right? Understood. At last I understood where this game was leading. Ah, so. But you know that every honest number as a matter of course must immediately go to the office of the Guardians and as a matter not of course, sharp smile bite. I'm very curious to know, will you or will you not go to the Guardians? Are you going to remain here? I grasped the knob of the door. It was a brass knob, a cold brass knob, and I heard, cold like brass, her voice. Just a minute, may I? She went to the telephone, called a number. I was so upset it escaped me, and spoke loudly. I shall be waiting for you in the ancient house. Yes, alone. I turned the cold brass knob. May I take the arrow? Oh yes, certainly, please. In the sunshine at the gate, the old woman was dozing like a plant. Again I was surprised to see her grown-together mouth open, and to hear her say, And your lady, did she remain alone? Alone. The mouth of the old woman grew together again. She shook her head. Apparently even her weakening brain understood the stupidity and danger of that woman's behavior. At 17 o'clock exactly, I was at the lecture. There, I suddenly realized that I did not tell the whole truth to the old woman. I-330 was not there alone now. Possibly this fact, that I involuntarily told the old woman a lie, was torturing me now and distracting my attention. Yes, not alone. That was the point. After 21:30 o'clock, I had a free hour. I could therefore have gone to the office of the Guardians to make my report. But after that stupid adventure I was so tired. Besides, the law provides 2 days. I shall have time tomorrow. I have another 24 hours. Record 7. An Eyelash, Taylor, Henbane, and Lily of the Valley. Night. Green, orange, blue. The red royal instrument, the yellow dress, then a brass Buddha. Suddenly, it lifted the brass eyelids, and sap began to flow from it, from Buddha. Sap also from the yellow dress, even in the mirror, drops of sap, and from the large bed, and from the children's bed, and soon from myself. It is horror, mortally sweet horror. I woke up. Soft blue light, the glass of the walls, of the chairs, of the table was glimmering. This calmed me. My heart stopped palpitating. Sap. Buddha. How absurd. I am sick, it is clear. I never saw dreams before. They say that to see dreams was a common, normal thing with the ancients. Yes, after all, their life was a whirling carousel. Green, orange, Buddha, sap. But we, people of today, we know all too well that dreaming is a serious mental disease. Is it possible that my brain, this precise, clean, glittering mechanism, like a chronometer without a speck of dust on it, is... Yes, it is now. I really feel there in the brain some foreign body like an eyelash in my eye. One does not feel one's whole body, but this eye with a hair in it. One cannot forget it for a second. The cheerful crystalline sound of the bell at my head. 7 o'clock. Time to get up. To the right and to the left as in mirrors. To the right and to the left through the glass walls. I see others like myself. Other rooms like my own. Other clothes like my own. Movements like mine. Duplicated thousands of times. This invigorates me. I see myself as part of an enormous, vigorous, united body. And what precise beauty. Not a single superfluous gesture or bow or turn. Yes, this Taylor was undoubtedly the greatest genius of the ancients. True, he did not come to the idea of applying his method to the whole life, to every step throughout the 24 hours of the day. He was unable to integrate his system from 1 o'clock to 24. I cannot understand the ancients. How could they write whole libraries about some Kant and think only slight notice of Taylor, of this prophet who saw 10 centuries ahead? Breakfast was over. The hymn of the United States had been harmoniously sung, rhythmically. 4 abreast, we walked to the elevators. The motors buzzed faintly, and swiftly we went down, 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 the heart sinking slightly. Again, that stupid dream, or some unknown function of that dream. Oh yes, yesterday in the Arrow, then down, down. Well, it is all over anyhow. Period. It is very fortunate that I was so firm and brusque with her. The car of the Underground Railway carried me swiftly to the place where the motionless, beautiful body of the Integral, not yet spiritualized by fire, was glittering in the docks in the sunshine. With closed eyes, I dreamed in formulae. Again, I calculated in my mind what was the initial velocity required to tear the Integral away from the Earth. Every second, the mass of the Integral would change because of the expenditure of the explosive fuel. The equation was very complex, with transcendent figures. As in a dream, I felt, right here in the firm, calculated world, how someone sat down at my side, barely touching me and saying, "Pardon." I opened my eyes. At first, apparently because of an association with the Integral, I saw something impetuously flying into the distance, ahead. I saw pink wing ears sticking out of the sides of it, and then the curve of the overhanging back of the head, the double-curved letter S. Through the glass walls of my algebraic world again, I felt the eyelash in my eye. I felt something disagreeable. I felt that today I must... "Certainly, please," I smiled at my neighbor and bowed. I saw number S4711 glittering on his golden badge. That is why I associated him with the letter S from the very first moment, an optical impression which remained unregistered by my consciousness. His eyes sparkled, two sharp little drills. They were revolving swiftly, drilling in deeper and deeper. It seemed that in a moment they would drill into the bottom and would see something that I do not even dare to confess to myself. That bothersome eyelash became wholly clear to me. S was one of them, one of the guardians. It would be the simplest thing, immediately, without deferring, to tell him everything. "I went yesterday to the ancient house." My voice was strange, husky, flat. I tried to cough. "That is good. It must have given you material for some instructive deductions." "Yes, but you see, I was not alone. I was in the company of I-330, and then..." "I-330? You are fortunate. She's a very interesting, gifted woman. She has a host of admirers." "But he, too, then, during the promenade. Perhaps he is even assigned as her he number." "No, it is impossible to tell him. Unthinkable. This was perfectly clear." Yes, certainly, very." I smiled, more and more broadly, more stupidly, and felt as if my smile made me look foolish, naked. The drills reached the bottom. Revolving continually, they screwed themselves back into his eyes. S smiled, double-curvedly, nodded, and slid to the exit. I covered my face with the newspaper. I felt as if everybody were looking at me, and soon I forgot about the eyelash, about the little drills, about everything. I was so upset by what I read in the paper. According to authentic information, traces of an organization which still remains out of reach have again been discovered. This organization aims at liberation from the beneficial yoke of the state. Liberation. It is remarkable how persistent human criminal instincts are. I use deliberately the word criminal, for freedom and crime are as closely related as, well, as the movement of arrow and its speed. If the speed of an arrow equals 0, the arrow is motionless. If human liberty is equal to 0, man does not commit any crime. That is clear. The way to rid man of criminality is to rid him of freedom. No sooner did we rid ourselves of freedom in the cosmic sense, centuries or only no sooner, than suddenly some unknown pitiful degenerates. No, I cannot understand why I did not go immediately yesterday to the Bureau of Guardians. Today, after 16 o'clock, I shall go without fail. At 16:10, I was in the street. At once I noticed 090 at the corner. She was all rosy with delight at the encounter. She has a simple, round mind. A timely meeting, she would understand and lend me support. Or no, I did not need any support. My decision was firm. The pipes of the musical tower thundered out harmoniously the march. The same daily march. How wonderful the charm of this dailiness, of this constant repetition and mirror-like smoothness. Out for a walk. Her round blue eyes opened toward me widely, blue windows leading inside. I penetrate there unhindered. There is nothing in there. I mean, nothing foreign, nothing superfluous. No, not for a walk. I must go. I told her where. And to my astonishment, I saw her rosy, round mouth form a crescent with the horns downward, as if she tasted something sour. This angered me. You she-numbers seem to be incurably eaten up by prejudices. You are absolutely unable to think abstractly. Forgive me the word, but this is, I call, bluntness of mind. You, to the spies? How ugly. And I went to the botanical garden and brought you a branch of lily of the valley. Why, and I? Why this, and? Just like a woman. Angrily, and I must confess, I snatched the flowers. Here they are, your lilies of the valley. Well, smell them. Good? Yes? Why not use a little bit of logic? The lilies of the valley smell good, all right, but you cannot say about an odor, about the conception of an odor, that it is good or bad. Can you? You can't, can you? There's the smell of lilies of the valley, and there's the disagreeable smell of henbane. Both are odors. The ancient states had their spies. We have ours. Yes, spies. I'm not afraid of words, but it is not clear to you that there the spies were henbane, but here they are lilies of the valley. Yes, lilies of the valley. Yes. The rosy crescent. The rosy crescent quivered. Now I understand that it was only my impression, but at that moment I was certain she was going to laugh. I shouted still louder. Yes, lilies of the valley, and there is nothing funny about it. Nothing funny. The smooth round globes of heads passing by were turning towards us. 090 gently took my hand. You are so strange today. Are you ill? My dream, yellow color, Buddha. It was at once borne clearly upon me that I must go to the medical bureau. Yes, you're right, I'm sick, I said with joy. That seems to be an inexplicable contradiction. There was nothing to be joyful about. You must go at once to the doctor. You understand that? You are obliged to be healthy. It seems strange you have to prove it to you. My dear O, of course you're right. Absolutely right. I did not go to the Bureau of Guardians. I could not. I had to go to the medical bureau. They kept me there until 17 o'clock. In the evening, incidentally, the Bureau of Guardians is closed evenings. In the evening, O came to see me. The curtains were not lowered. We busied ourselves with the arithmetical problems of an ancient textbook. This occupation always calms and purifies our thoughts. O sat over her notebook, her head slightly inclined to the left. She was so assiduous that she poked out her left cheek with the tongue from within. She looked so childlike, so charming. I felt everything in me was pleasant, precise, and simple. She left. I remained alone. I breathed deeply 2 times. It is very good exercise before retiring for the night. Suddenly, an unexpected odor reminiscent of something very disagreeable. I soon found what was the matter. A branch of lily of the valley was hidden in my bed. Immediately everything was aroused again, came up from the bottom. Decidedly, it was tactless on her part to put these lilies of the valley there surreptitiously. Well, true, I did not go. I didn't, but it was my fault that I had felt indisposed. Oh yeah, makes sense, Apollo. What makes sense, Apollo? Is it something about the book? Oh, maybe it was something I said. I can't remember what I said last time I yapped. Oh God. Okay, here we go. Record 8. An irrational root. R13. The triangle. It was long ago, during my school days, when I first encountered the square root of -1. I remember it all very clearly. A bright globe-like class hall, about 100 round heads of children, and Plappa, our mathematician. We nicknamed him Plappa. It was very much used. It was a very much used-up mathematician, loosely screwed together. As the member of the class who was on duty that day would put the plug into the socket behind, we could hear it first from the loudspeaker, plap, 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 shh. Only then lesson would follow. One day, Plappa told us about irrational numbers, and I remember I wept and banged the table with my fist and cried, "I do not want that square root of -1. Take that square root of -1 away." This irrational root grew into me as something strange, foreign, terrible. It tortured me. It could not be thought out. It could not be defeated because it was beyond reason. Now that square root of -1 is here again. I read over what I have written, and I see clearly that I was insincere with myself, that I lied to myself in order to avoid seeing that square root of -1. My sickness is all nonsense. I could go there. I feel sure that if such a thing had happened a week ago, I should have gone without hesitating. Why then am I unable to go now? Why? Today, for instance, at exactly 16:10, I stood before the glittering glass wall. Above was the shining golden sun-like sign, Bureau of Guardians. Inside, a long queue of bluish-gray eunuchs awaiting their turns, faces shining like the oil lamps in an ancient temple. They had come to accomplish a great thing. They had come to put on the altar of the United States their beloved ones, their friends, their own selves. My whole being craved to join them, yet I could not. My feet were as though melted into the glass plates of the sidewalk. I simply stood there looking foolish. "Hey, mathematician, dreaming?" I shivered. Black eyes varnished with laughter looked at me. Thick lips. It was my old friend, the poet R13, and with him, Rosie O. I turned around angrily. I still believed that if they had not appeared, I should have entered the bureau and have torn the square root of -1 out of my flesh. "Not dreaming at all, if you will, standing in adoration," I retorted quite brusquely. "Not dreaming at all, if you will, standing in adoration," I retorted quite brusquely. "Oh, certainly, certainly. You, my friend, should never have become a mathematician. You should have become a poet, a great poet. Yes, come over to our trade, to the poets. If you will, I can arrange it in a jiffy, R13 usually talks very fast. His words run in torrents. His thick lips sprinkle every P as a fountain. Every poet's is a fountain. So far I have served knowledge, and I shall continue to serve knowledge. I frowned. I do not understand jokes, and R13 has the bad habit of joking. "Oh, to the deuce with knowledge. Your much-heralded knowledge is but a form of cowardice. It is in fact. Yes, you want to encircle the infinite with a wall, and you fear to cast a glance behind the wall. Yes, sir, and if you should glance beyond the wall, you would be dazzled and close your eyes, yes." "Walls are the foundation of every human," I began. R13 sprinkled his fountain. O laughed rosily and roundly. I waved my hand. "Well, you may laugh, I don't care. I was busy with something else. I had to find a way of eating up, of crushing down that square root of -1. Suppose," I offered, "we go to my place and do some arithmetical problems." The quiet hour of yesterday afternoon came to my memory, perhaps today also. O glanced at R, then serenely and roundly at me. The soft, endearing color of our pink checks came to her cheeks. "But today I have a check to him today," a glance at R. "And tonight he is busy, so—" The moist, varnished lips whispered good-naturedly, "Half an hour is plenty for us, is it not? Oh, I'm not a great lover of your problems. Let us simply go over to my place and chat." I was afraid to remain alone with myself, or to be more correct, with that strange new self who by some curious coincidence bore my number, D503. So I went with R. True, he is not precise, not rhythmic. His logic is jocular and turned inside out. Yet we are. 3 years ago, we both chose our dear Rosie O. This tied our friendship more firmly together than our school days did. In R's room, everything seems like mine. The tables, the glass of the chairs, the table, the closet, the bed. But as we entered, R moved one chair out of place, then another. The room became confused. Everything lost the established order and seemed to violate every rule of Euclid's geometry. R remained the same as always. In Taylor and in mathematics, he always lagged at the tail of the class. We recalled Plappa, how we boys used to paste the whole surface of his glass legs with paper. How we boys used to paste the whole surface of his glass legs with paper notes expressing our thanks. We all loved Plappa. We recalled our priest. It goes without saying that we were not taught the law of ancient religion, but the law of the United States. Our priest had a very powerful voice. A real hurricane would come out of the loudspeaker, and we children would yell the prescribed texts after him with all our lung power. We recalled how our scapegrace, R13, used to stuff the priest with chewed paper. Every word was thus accompanied by a paper wad shot out. Naturally, R was punished. For what he did was undoubtedly wrong, but now we laughed heartily. By we, I mean our triangle, R, O, and I. I must confess, I too. And what if we had been And what if he had been a living one, like the ancient ones, eh? We'd have fountain running from the fat bubbling lips. The sun was shining through the ceiling, the sun above, the sun from the sides, its reflection from below. O on R13's lap and minutes. O on R13's lap and minute drops of sunlight in O's blue eyes. Somehow my heart warmed up. The square root of -1 became silent and motionless. Well, how is your integral? Will you soon hop off to enlighten the inhabitants of the planets? You'd better hurry up, my boy, or we poets will have produced such a devilish lot that even your integral will be unable to lift the cargo. Every day from 8 to 11. R wagged his head and scratched the back of it. The back of his head is square. Looks like a little valise. I recalled for some reason an ancient painting, In the Cab. I felt more lively. You too are writing for the integral. Tell me about it. What are you writing about? What did you write today, for instance? Today I did not write. Today I was busy with something else. Busy sprinkled straight into my face. What else? R frowned. What? Well, if you insist, I'll tell you. I was busy with the death sentence. I was putting the death sentence into verse. An idiot, to be frank, one of our poets. For 2 years, we all lived side by side with him, and nothing seemed wrong. Suddenly he went crazy. I, said he, am a genius, and I am above the law. All that sort of nonsense. But it is not a thing to talk about. The fat lips hung down. The varnish disappeared from the eyes. He jumped up, turned around, and stared through the wall. I looked at his tightly closed little valise and thought, what is he handling in that little valise now? A moment of awkward, asymmetric silence. I could not see clearly what was the matter, but I was certain there was something. Fortunately, the antediluvian time of these Shakespeares and Dostoevskys, or what were their names, is past, I said in a voice deliberately loud. R turned his face to me. Words sprinkled and bubbled out of him as before, but I thought I noticed there was no more joyful varnish to his eyes. Yes, dear mathematician. Fortunately, we are the happy arithmetic mean. As you would put it, the integration from 0 to infinity, from imbeciles to Shakespeare. Do I put it right? I do not know why. It seemed to me so absolutely uncalled for. Hi, silly. Yes, I would like some pasta, thank you. I do not know why. It seemed to me absolutely uncalled for. I recalled suddenly the other one, her tone, a thin, invisible thread stretched between her and R. What thread? The square root of -1 began to bother me. Oh, silly, were you expecting something more? Were you expecting a good girl? Is that maybe what you were expecting? I did not know why. It seemed to me absolutely uncalled for. I recalled suddenly... There it is. Ma. Thank you very much, silly. You're a very good girl for making some pasta. Thank you for trying to take care of me. I do not know why it seemed to me so absolutely uncalled for. Welcome in, Raiders. Twitchy, why are you doing this? Why do you have to spoil the fun? I suddenly recalled the other one, her tone. Thin, invisible thread stretched between her and R. What thread? The square root of -1 began to bother me again. I glanced at my badge. 16:20, 5 o'clock. Or 16:25 o'clock. They had only 35 minutes for the use of the pink check.
Did something unusual just occur on the bridge?
Hi, welcome in, Raiders. Hi, Henrex. Thank you for message deleted me. Thank you for the raid, Bubs. G. Shout out to Bees. What were you up to, Bees? Just chatting? How was your stream, Bees? Message deleted. Good to know. For anyone who isn't aware, I'm a rock by day. I like to do book readings on Twitch. I do occasionally play games. That's more of a collab thing for me. But I have just begun this new series for Dystopia December. I'm going to be reading We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. I'm currently about 10 of 40 chapters in. There'll be a VOD of this. I'll be publishing later. I might actually edit these videos before I put them on YouTube as well. Just like I'm still editing the last episode of Dracula to be put on YouTube for posterity. Anyway, thank you for raiding. Thank you for joining. If you need to go take care of yourselves, please do so. I want you to take care of yourselves before you listen to me. But anyway, thank you. Thank you all for coming. Well, I must go. I kissed O, shook hands with R, and went to the elevator. As I crossed the avenue, I turned around. Here and there in the huge mess of glass penetrated by sunshine, there were grayish-blue squares. The opaque squares of lowered curtains, the squares of rhythmic, tailorized happiness. On the 7th floor, I found R13's square. The curtains were already lowered. Dear O, dear R. He also has, I do not know why I write this also, but I write it as it comes from my pen. He too has something which is not entirely clear in him, yet I, he, and O, we are a triangle. I confess, not an isosceles triangle, but a triangle nevertheless. We, to speak in the language of our ancestors, perhaps to you, my planetary readers, this is more comprehensible language. We are a family, and one feels so good at times when one is able for a short while, at least to close oneself within a firm triangle, close oneself away from anything that... He trails off. Record 9. Liturgy, Iambus, the Cast Iron Hand. A solemn, bright day. On such days, one forgets one's weaknesses, inexactitudes, illnesses, and everything is crystalline and imperturbable like our new glass. The Plaza of the Cube, The Plaza of the Cube, 66 imposing concentric circles stands. 66 rows of quiet, serene faces, eyes reflecting the shining of the sky, or perhaps it is the shining of the United States. Red like blood are the flowers, the lips of the women, like soft garlands the face of the children. In the first rows, nearest the place of action, found austere Gothic silence. To judge by the descriptions that reach us from the ancients, they felt somewhat like this during their church services, but they served their nonsensical, unknown God. We serve our rational God, whom we know most thoroughly. Their God gave them nothing but eternal, torturing seeking. Our God gives us absolute truth. That is, He has rid us of any kind of doubt. Their God did not invent anything cleverer than sacrificing oneself. Nobody knows what for. we bring to our God, the United State, a quiet, rational, carefully thought-out sacrifice. Yes, it was a solemn liturgy for the United State, a reminiscence of the great days, years of the 200 Years' War, a magnificent celebration of the victory of all over one, of the sum over the individual. That one stood on the steps of the cube, which was filled with sunlight, a white, no, not even white, but already colorless, glass face, lips of glass, and only the eyes, thirsty, swallowing black holes leading into that dreadful world from which he was only a few minutes away. The golden badge with the number already had been taken off. His hands were tied with a red ribbon, a symbol of ancient custom. The explanation of it is that in the old days, when this sort of thing was not done in the name of the United States, the convicted naturally considered that they had the right to resist, hence their hands were usually bound with chains. On the top of the cube, next to the machine, the motionless metallic figure of him who we call the well-doer. One could not see his face from below. All one could see was that it was bounded by austere, magnificent square lines, and his hands. Did you ever notice how sometimes in a photograph the hands, if they were too near the camera, appear to be enormous? They then compel your attention, overshadow everything else. Those hands of his, heavy hands, quiet for the time being, were stony hands. It seemed the knees on which they rested must have ached in the bearing their weight. Suddenly, one of those hands rose slowly, a slow cast-iron gesture. Obeying the will of the lifted hand, a number came out on the platform. It was one of the state poets, whose fortunate lot it was to crown our celebration with his verses. Divine iambic brass verses thundered over the many stands. They dealt with the man who, his reason lost in lips like glass, stood on the steps and waited for the logical consequences of his own insane deeds. Ablaze, buildings were swaying in those iambic lines, and sprinkling upwards their liquefied golden substance. They broke and fell. The green trees were scorched, their sap slowly ran out, and they remained standing like black crosses, like skeletons. Then appeared Prometheus. That meant us. He harnessed fire with machines and steel, and fettered chaos with law. The world was renovated. It became like steel, a sun of steel, trees of steel, men of steel. Suddenly, an insane man unchained the fire and set it free, and again the world had perished. Unfortunately, I have a bad memory for poetry, but one thing I am sure of. One could not choose more instructive or more beautiful parables. Another slow, heavy gesture of the cast-iron hand, and another poet appeared on the steps of the cube. I stood up. Impossible, but thick lips. It was he. Why didn't he tell me that he was to be invested with such high? His lips trembled. They were gray. Oh, I certainly understood. To be face to face with the well-doer, face to face with the hosts of guardians. Yet one should not allow oneself to be so upset. Swift, sharp axes. Just a moment. Oh, fuck. There we go. Swift, sharp verses like an axe. They told us about an unheard-of crime, about sacrilegious poems in which the well-doer was called, but no, I do not dare repeat. R13 was pale when he finished, and looking at no one. I did not expect such bashfulness of him. He descended and sat down. For an infinitesimal fraction of a second, I saw right beside him somebody's face, a sharp black triangle, and instantly I lost it. My eyes, thousands of eyes, were directed upward toward the machine. Then again the superhuman cast-iron gesture of the hand. Swayed by an unknown wind, the criminal moved up, one step, one more than the last step in his life. His face was turned to the sky, his head thrown back. He was on his last, heavy, stony-like fate. The well-doer went around the machine, put his enormous hand on the lever. Not a whisper, not a breath around. All eyes were upon the hand. What crushing, scorching power one must feel to be the tool, to be the resultant of hundreds of thousands of wills. How great his lot. Another second, the hand moved down, switching in the current. The lightning-sharp blade of the electric ray, a faint crack like a shiver in the tubes of the machine. The prone body covered with a light phosphorescent smoke. Then, suddenly, under the eyes of all, it began to melt, to dissolve with terrible speed, and then nothing. Just a pool of chemically pure water, which only a moment ago had been so red and had pulsated in his heart. All this was simple. All of us were familiar with the phenomenon. Dissociation of matter. Yes, the splitting of the atoms of the human body. Yet every time we witnessed it, it seemed a miracle. It was a symbol of the superhuman power of the well-doer. Above, in front of him, the burning faces of the female numbers, mouths half open from emotion, flowers swaying in the wind. According to custom, 10 women were covering with flowers the uniform of the well-doer, which was still wet with spray. With the magnificent step of a supreme priest, he slowly descended, slowly passed between the rows of stands. Like tender white branches there rose toward him the arms of the women, and millions like one, our tempestuous cheers. Then cheers in honor of the guardians, who all unseen were present among us. Who knows, perhaps the fancy of the ancient man foresaw them centuries ahead, and then he created the gentle and formidable guardian angels assigned to each person from the day of his birth. Yes, there was in our celebration something of the ancient religions, something purifying like a storm. For whose lot it may be to read this, are you familiar with such emotions? I'm sorry for you if you are not. Record 10. A letter, a membrane, hairy eye. Yesterday was for me like the filter paper that chemists use for filtering their solutions. All suspended and superfluous particles remain on the paper. This morning, I went downstairs, all purified and distilled, transparent. Downstairs in the hall, the controller sat at a small table, constantly looking at her watch and recording the numbers who were leaving. Her name is Yu. Well, I prefer not to give her number, for I fear I may not write kindly about her. Although, as a matter of fact, she's a very respectable, mature woman. The only thing I do not like in her is that her cheeks fold down a little like the gills of a fish, although I don't see anything wrong in this appearance. She scratched with her pen and saw on the page D503, and suddenly, splash, an ink blot. No sooner did I open my mouth to call her attention to that than she raised her head and blotted me with an inky smile. "There is a letter for you. You will receive it, dear. Yes, you will." I knew a letter, after she had read it, must go through the Bureau of Guardians. I think it is unnecessary to explain in detail this natural order of things. I would receive it not later than 12 o'clock, but that tiny smile confused me. The drop of ink clouded the transparency of the distilled solution. At the integrals dock, I could not concentrate. I even made a mistake in my calculations, something that had never happened to me before. At 12 o'clock again, the rosy brown fish scales smile, and at last the letter was in my hands. I cannot say why I did not read it right then and there. Instead, I put it in my pocket and ran into my room. I opened it, scanned it quickly, and sat down. It was an official notice to the effect that number I-330 had me assigned to her, and that today at 21 o'clock I was to go to her, and her address was given. No, after all that had happened, after I had shown her frankly my attitude toward her, besides, how could she know that I did not go to the Bureau of Guardians? She had no way of knowing that I have been ill and could not, despite all this. A dynamo was whirling and buzzing in my head. Buddha, yellow, lilies of the valley, rosy crescent. Besides, O wanted to come to see me today. I was sure she would not believe. How could one believe? That I had absolutely nothing to do with the matter. That I was also sure that we, O and I, would have a difficult, foolish, and absolutely illogical conversation. No, anything but that. Let the situation solve itself mechanically. I would send her a copy of the official communication. While I was hastily putting the paper in my pocket, I noticed my terrible ape-like hand. I remembered how that day, during our walk, she had taken my hand and looked at it. It is possible that she... 21:15, a white northern night. Everything was glass, greenish, but it was a different kind of glass, not like ours, not genuine, but very breakable, a thin glass shell, and without that shell things were flying, whirling, buzzing. I wouldn't have been surprised if suddenly the cupola of the auditorium had risen in slow rolling clouds of smoke, or if the ripe moon had sent an inky smile like that one at the table this morning, or if in every house suddenly all the curtains had been lowered, and behind the curtains I felt something peculiar. My ribs were like iron bars that decidedly interfered with my heart, giving it too little space. I stood at a glass door on which were the golden letters I-330. I-330 sat at the table with her back to me. She was writing something. I stepped in. Here, I held out the pink check. I received the notice this noon, and here I am. How punctual you are. Just a minute, please, may I? Sit down, I shall finish in a minute. She lowered her eyes to the letter. What had she there behind her lowered curtains? What should she say? What would she say? What would she do in a second? How to learn it? How to calculate it? Since she comes from beyond, from the wild, ancient land of dreams. I looked at her in silence. My ribs were iron bars. The space for the heart was too small. When she speaks, her face is like a swiftly revolving, glittering wheel. You cannot see the separate bars. But at that moment the wheel was motionless. I saw a strange combination. Dark eyebrows running right to the temples, a sharp, mocking triangle, and still another dark triangle with its apex upwards. Two deep wrinkles from the nose to the angles of the mouth, and these two triangles somehow contradicted each other. They gave the whole face that disagreeable, irritating X, or cross, a face marked obliquely by a cross. The wheel started to turn, its bars blurred. So did you go to the Bureau of Guardians after all? I did not feel well. I could not. Yes, I thought so. Something must have prevented you. It matters little what. Sharp teeth, a smile. Hi, CC. Thanks for coming in. I'm just, I started reading We by Yevgeny Zamyatin today. It's sort of oh, you're getting blood work done. Okay. Well, I hope it turns out well for you. I hope you do well. Thanks for shouting out CC Silly. Thank you very much. Well, I hope you can enjoy this while you're getting your blood work done. I'm probably gonna finish after this chapter. Probably if I finish before the next ad break. But thanks for dropping by. I'll leave the VOD up so you can hear it. I did not feel well. Sharp teeth, but now you're in my hands. You remember, any numbers who within 48 hours fail to report to the Bureau is considered. My heart banged so forcibly that iron bars bent. If I were not sitting like a little boy, how stupid. I was caught like a little boy, and stupidly I kept silent. I felt I was in a net, neither my legs nor my arms. She stood up and stretched herself lazily. She pressed the button, and the curtains on all four walls fell with a slight rustle. I was cut off from the rest of the world, alone with her. She was somewhere behind me, near the closet door. The unif was rustling, falling. I was listening, all listening. I remembered. No, it glistened in my mind for 1/100th of a second. I once had to calculate the curve of a new type of street membrane. These membranes are handsomely decorated and all placed all over the avenues, registering all street conversations for the Bureau of Guardians. I remembered a rosy, concave, trembling membrane, a strange being consisting of one organ only, an ear. I was at that moment such a membrane. Now the click, the snap at her collar, at her breast, the low and lower. The glassy silk rustled over her shoulders and knees, over the floor. I heard, it was clearer than actually seeing, I heard how one foot stepped out of the grayish-blue heap of silk, and then the other. Soon I'd hear the creak of the bed, and the tensely stretched membrane trembled and registered the silence. No, the sharp, hammer-like blows of the heart against the iron bars, and endless pauses between beats, and I saw how she, behind me, hesitated for a second, thinking the door of the closet. It slammed. Again. Silk. Silk. Well, all right. I turned around. She was dressed in a saffron yellow dress of an ancient style. This was 1,000 times worse than if she had not been dressed at all. Two sharp points glowing with rosiness through she'd not been dressed at all. 2 sharp points glowing with rosiness through the thin tissue, 2 burning embers piercing through ashes, 2 tender, round knees. I was sitting in a low armchair in front of her on a small... Oh, that's the ad. Ad's in 5 minutes, okay. She was sitting in a low armchair in front of her on a small square table. I noticed a bottle filled with something poisonously green, and 2 small glasses with thin stems. In the corner of her mouth she had a very thin paper tube. She was ejecting smoke formed by the burning of that ancient smoking substance whose name I did not now remember. The membrane was still vibrating. Within, the sledgehammer was pounding the red-hot iron bars of my chest. I heard distinctly every blow of the hammer, and what if she, too, heard it? But she continued to produce smoke very calmly. Calmly she looked at me, and nonchalantly she flicked ashes on the pink check. With as much self-control as possible, I asked, "If you still feel that way, why did you have me assigned to you, and why did you make me come here?" As if she had not heard at all, she poured some of the green liquid from the bottle into one of the small glasses and sipped it. "Wonderful liqueur. Want some?" Then I understood. Alcohol. Like lightning there came to memory that I had seen yesterday. The stony hand of the well-doer, the unbearable blade of the electric ray, there on the cube, the head thrown back, the stretched-out body. I shivered. "Please listen," I said. "You know, do you not, that anyone who poisons himself with nicotine, or particularly with alcohol, is severely treated by the United States?" Dark brows raised high to the temples, the sharp, mocking triangle. "It is more reasonable to annihilate a few than to allow them to poison themselves, and degeneration, etc. This is true to the point of indecency." "Indecency?" "Yes, to let out in the street that such a group of bald-headed, naked little truths. Only imagine, please, say, that persistent admirer of mine, S. Well, you know him. Then imagine if he should discard the deception of clothes and appear in public in his true form. Oh," she laughed. But I clearly saw her lower, sorrowful triangle, 2 deep grooves from the nose to the mouth, and for some reason these grooves made me think that double-curved being, half-hunched with wing-like ears, he embraced her. Her, such... Oh. Naturally, I try now merely to express my abnormal feelings of that moment. Now, as I write, I understand perfectly that all this is as it should be. That he, S4711, like any other honest number, has a perfect right to the joys of life, and that it would be unjust, but I think the point is quite clear. I-330 laughed a long, strange laugh. Then she cast a look a look at me, into me. The most curious thing is that I am not in the least afraid of you. You are such a dear, I am sure of it. You would never think of going to the bureau and reporting that I drink liqueurs and smoke. You will be sick or busy, or I don't know what. Furthermore, I'm sure you will drink this charming poison with me. What an impertinent, mocking tone. I felt definitely that in a moment I would hate her. Why in a moment? In fact, I hated her all the time. I-330 tilted the little glass of green poison straight into her mouth. Then she stood up, and all rosy through the translucent saffron yellow tissue, she made a few steps and stopped behind my chair. Suddenly her arms were about my neck. Her lips grew into mine. No, even somewhere much deeper, much more terribly. I swear all this was unexpected for me. That is why, perhaps, for I could not, at this moment, I see clearly. I could not myself have the desire to. Unbearably sweet lips. I suppose it was the taste of the liqueur. It was as though burning poison were being poured into me, and more and more. I tore away from the earth and began revolving as an independent planet. Okay, I'm going to pause there for a moment. The ad's about to start. Thank you for barking at me, CC. I'll get you one back. I just want to thank everyone for stopping in again. Oh, thank you for the hydration. Okay, yeah, while we're adding on here, I'll just go ahead and yap for a minute. I'm really liking this book. It really does remind me a lot of 1984. I definitely see where George Orwell drew some inspiration from this book, and I'm really quite enjoying it. I hope you are as well, and I'm glad I can share it with you, and I'm glad you're all joining me here for this book. Two minutes of ads. Okay, 2 minutes left. Oh. Let's see, we shouted out CC. Did we miss anybody with some shout-outs? We shouted out Bees, we shouted out Twitchy. I'm going to shout out Henrex. Little Henny. Thanks for showing up. Let's see, Apollo's here. Shouted out Raven. Shouted out Luca. Looks like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and shout out my dearest Silibit, who's at this moment preparing noodles. Last night she was trying to act as a blind person leading the blind in Deep Rock Galactic. It was rather entertaining. As someone who has hundreds of hours in that game, it was kind of fun watching somebody who's so green play it. Let's see, how much, where am I at? I'm at 25% of the book. I think this is actually, let's see, how long have I been reading? 2 hours? I think this book is going to be a lot shorter. It's definitely not going to take 8 episodes to read. So after that, I think maybe we'll read that Kurt Vonnegut book that this book also mentioned in the about the author section, because I do like some Kurt Vonnegut. I would read Slaughterhouse-5, but maybe we'll read Slaughterhouse-5 as well. I really like that book. I enjoyed it a lot. So we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7. Let's see, I'm unmuted. Dog is scratching himself. All is good in the world. All right, and we're back from the ad. Thank you for sticking through the ad. It helps me keep the channel going. I tore away from the Earth and began revolving as an independent planet. Down, down, following an incalculable curve. What happened next? Bort. What happened next I am able to describe only in an approximate way, only by way of more or less suitable analogies. It never occurred to me before, but it is true. We who live on the Earth, we are always walking over a seething red sea of fire which is hidden in the womb of the Earth. We never think of it, but imagine the ground under our feet suddenly transformed into a thin glass shell. Suddenly we should behold. I became glass-like and saw within myself. There were two selves in me, one the former D503, number D503, and the other, before, that other used only to show his hairy paws from time to time, but now that whole other self left his shell. That shell was breaking, and in a moment. Grasping the last straw, the arms of the chair, with all my strength, I asked loudly, so as to hear my first self, Where did you get this poison? Oh, this? A physician, one of my what? And my other self jumped up suddenly and yelled, I won't allow it. I want no one but me. I shall kill anyone who, because you. I saw my other self grasp her rudely with his hairy paws, tear the silk and put his teeth in her flesh. I remember exactly, his teeth. I do not remember how, but I-330 slipped away and I saw her straighten, her head raised high, her eyes overlaid by that cursed, impenetrable curtain. She stood leaning with her back against the closet door and listening to me. I remember I was on the floor. I embraced her limbs, kissed her knees, and cried supplicatingly, At once, right away. Sharp teeth, the sharp, mocking triangle of the brows. She bent over and in silence unbuttoned my badge. Yes, dear. I began hastily to remove my uniform, but I-330, silent as before, lifted my badge to my eyes, showing me the clock upon it. It was 22:25. I became cold. I knew what it meant to be out in the street after 22:30. My insanity disappeared at once. I was again I. I saw clearly one thing. I hated her. Without saying goodbye, without looking back, I ran out of the room. Hurriedly trying to fasten the badge back in its place, I ran down the stairs. I was afraid lest someone notice me in the elevator, and tore out into a deserted street. Everything was in its place. Life so simple, ordinary, orderly. Glittering glass houses, pale glass sky, a green, motionless night. But under that cool glass something wild, something red and hairy was silently seething. I was gasping for breath, but I continued to run so as not to be late. Suddenly I felt that badge, which I had made hurriedly pinned on, was detaching itself. It came off and fell to the sidewalk. I bent over to pick it up, and in the momentary silence I heard somebody's steps. I turned. Someone small and hunched was disappearing around the corner. At least so it seemed. I started to run as fast as I could. The wind whistled in my ears. At the entrance to my house I stopped and looked at the clock. Looked at the clock. 1 minute to 22:30. I listened. Nobody behind. It was my foolish imagination, the effect of the poison. The night was full of torture. My bed seemed to lift itself under me, then fall again, then up again. I used autosuggestion. At night, all the numbers must sleep. Sleeping at night is a duty just like working during the day. To sleep at night is necessary for the next day's work. Not to sleep at night is criminal. Yet I could not sleep. I could not. I was perishing. I was unable to fulfill my duties to the United States. There ends record 10. I think for the pace at which this book has gone, I'm going to stick with 10 chapters per session, then I'll have 4, and then I can make this an actual dystopia series where I read more than one book in a month. I'm so glad you all came to my chat today. Thank you so much, Raiders, for coming in. Thank you, CC, for joining us. Thank you, Apollo, for coming in. Thank you, Twitch, for always being here despite not being a mod. I really am glad that you choose to share your time with me, even though you have so many responsibilities to this community. Thank you all again for coming. I'll make sure this VOD goes up, and then once I finish editing Dracula, I will make sure to either edit this one or I might just upload this one straight away. It's been a pretty good read. I don't feel like I stumbled too terribly much, but thank you all again for coming, and let's see who's online right now. Who am I following that is active? Let's see, Kush is on, Doggy's on, Yui, Rhea, and Aki are on. Let's see if there's any other readers on. Category. Waiting. Reading. Oh, fuck. Oh, did I? No, I didn't. Okay, oh, fuck. Oh, shit, what did I do? Oh, no, I broke it. Okay, back to channel, back to, oh, shit. God damn it. I'm always fucking this up. I'm always fucking up the raid. Creator dashboard. Stream manager. Raid button. There we go. Read with me. I'm Basum Petit Moment. A French reader. Writing holiday commissions. Lo-fi sessions. Help. Louise Penny. Oh, here we go. Here's another person reading aloud. I wish I could hear things.
No, she was a senior clerk. Almost certainly suicide, but the autopsy will tell us more.
Okay, this should fit my vibe. Let's go with rating E Magistral. I'll go ahead and post. There's our raid message. I don't have anything great, but go ahead and start the raid. You can copy that. 6 viewers. Ooh, this is a big raid for me. This will be good stuff. Oh, I wonder if maybe he's